To introduce tonight's film, I'd like to welcome Dr. Alessandra Buccella, who joined the U Albany Philosophy Department September 2023 as assistant professor. Before that, she was a postdoctoral researcher at the Brain Institute at Chapman University in Orange, California. Her research is mainly focused on the philosophy of cognitive neuroscience and the philosophy of artificial intelligence. She is interested in foundational questions about the nature of cognition and agency, the relationship between sensory mechanisms and conscious experience, and the social impacts of big data and machine learning. I can't imagine anyone better suited to introduce tonight's feature film, the Wachowskis' game-changing film, The Matrix. And please stick around after the credits for a post-screening discussion. And please welcome Dr. Buccella.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you so much for having me, for the invitation. I'm very excited to talk about this movie because the Matrix and I go way back. When I first became interested in the philosophy of mind as a college student, this classic movie was used constantly as a way to help us imagine more vividly a fundamental philosophical problem known as the mind-body problem. Traditionally, the problem's most popular formulation is attributed to Descartes. In his Meditations, this 17th century French philosopher wonders whether any of the things we normally believe about ourselves and the world around us can be known in a clear and distinct way, without any doubt whatsoever. To figure this out, Descartes relied on a specific methodology. He said, let's doubt everything that can be possibly doubted. Get to some primitive, fundamental belief that cannot be doubted, and rebuild all of our beliefs on top of that foundation. He arrived at the famous conclusion that I think, therefore I am. By this phrase, Descartes meant that the only thing that we can be absolutely certain of is that we think. That is, we have an internal conscious life made of sensations, emotions, thoughts, hopes, and more. All of this, Descartes argues, is true even if we do not believe, or if we temporarily suspend our belief that we have a body and a brain, and that we live in a physical world that exists outside of our minds. And this is where the Matrix comes in. In the Matrix, people have vivid conscious lives, even without the actual external world looking anything like what they experience. If the world of the Matrix is possible, and if most people in that world can live their lives without ever realizing that they're inhabiting a virtual environment while being physically hooked up to machines that create the environment for them, then Descartes may have been right. All that we can ever know for sure about anything is that we are, right here and right now, having conscious experiences. Whether this consciousness resides in a material body and is really interacting with the physical environment made of, trees, houses, or the chairs you're currently sitting in, are things we might believe, but definitely do not have conclusive evidence for. The scenario evoked by the Matrix is obviously far-fetched. It is, after all, science fiction, and as such, it is hard to fully determine how plausible it all is, or if it's even coherent or conceivable in a purely theoretical sense. I find most works of science fiction, even more recent ones, which at least at first may appear to rely on real science, to be like this. When the goal is to entertain an audience, making scientifically sound claims is basically impossible, no matter what they tell you. However, even without considering the Matrix to be a representation of an improbable, less yet possible world, timely and important reflections can be inspired by this incredibly influential piece of popular culture. Today, I want to invite you to watch and evaluate The Matrix, not as a metaphysical thought experiment about the existence of the external world, which is its most popular interpretation, nor as a cautionary tale for the future about AI gone wrong. Rather, I would like to emphasize its significance as an allegory, as a metaphor for the world we are in fact already living in. To give you an example, back in January 2021, political aesthetics professor Esther Leslie told the story of virtual reality goggles being strapped onto cows living in factory farms to give them the illusion of roaming free in a beautiful green hill. The experiment, done essentially with the goal of increasing cows' milk production by making them feel less stressed and anxious about their actual living conditions, was apparently successful. At the same time, however, Leslie rightly observed that, and I quote, a cow sporting VR goggles is comedic as much as it is tragic, before asking, how different is our experience? Could we, like the cows, be played by the machinery, our emotions swayed under ever sunny skies, without us even knowing that we are inside the matrix? The matrix again, or the metaverse, as some billionaire tech fetishists like to call it. A lot of public discourse around artificial intelligence nowadays is very vague. AI technologies are characterized in either fuzzy, impersonal, and abstract terms that provide virtually no information about what they are, of what they can and cannot do, or in overly technical and inscrutable terms that only a handful of computer scientists and tech executives understand. Both ends of the spectrum end up having similar negative consequences, though. Ordinary people are mostly kept in the dark about what kind of AI technologies exist, how they work, and what they're currently being used for. The truth is, AI is already in charge of our lives, even without us lying in pods and being hooked up to cables. The real matrix runs on our phones, laptops, smartwatches. Quoting Leslie again, we submit to emotion trackers, we log into biofeedback machines, we sign up for tracking and tracing. We let advertisers' eyes watch us constantly, and mappers store our coordinates. This is AI today. Predictive algorithms processing enormous amount of data about us and using them to create around us whatever personalized environment will make us rely on a certain news source or buy more stuff or share more about our intimate lives or vote for a certain political candidate and so on. Like the matrix of the movie, this real world matrix is, to quote media and technology scholar Mark Shepard, as broadly pervasive as it is largely invisible. It stretches seamlessly across public and private domains, between home and office, and throughout online and offline environments. It blankets urban and ex-urban contexts equally without prejudice, end quote. To give you a rough idea, in 2021, we produced on average 200,000 tweets, 21 million text messages, 197 million emails, 1.4 million Facebook logins, 500 hours of YouTube content, 2 million live streams, 695,000 Instagram stories, 2 million Tinder swipes, and 3.4 million Snapchat images every minute. And almost without realizing it, Shepard continues, we have learned to reckon with all this with practiced indifference. Physical public spaces where people used to actively construct their practical, intellectual, and political common ground via interaction, conflict, and negotiation is increasingly replaced by internet echo chambers, information bubbles, and deep fakes. With what consequences, though? Will this pervasive blasé attitude towards having complex, messy, collectively constructed meaning be transformed into machine readable data soon come back to haunt us? In the words of philosopher of technology Luciano Floridi, by creating AI technology and big data, we managed to divorce agency from intelligence. And now the value of the process and the context of a production of meaning, our uniqueness and originality as producers of sense and of new contents are being questioned. The creation of personalized yet impersonal content by machines, like large language models, emphasizes our replaceability as readers, interpreters, translations, synthesizer, and evaluators, creating a radical fragmentation of shared experience. And whenever something public and communal disappears, someone is inevitably left behind, trapped in a reality they did not choose, waiting for Morpheus to show up with the red pill. Philosophers of human rights Matthias Rissa reminds us that when wealth was determined by land ownership, the rich needed the masses because the point of land ownership was to charge rent. When wealth was determined by the ownership of factories, the owners needed the masses to work the machines and buy stuff. But those on the losing side of the technological divide may no longer be needed at all. Eventually, there might be separate company owned towns with wonderful social services from which others are excluded. Perhaps just enough will be given to those others so that they do not rebel outright. The fabric of society might dissolve if there are many more people than needed as participants in any sense. This is the matrix that is quickly forming around us. With fewer and fewer opportunities to step out whenever we subscribe to a new online service or allow a new app to use our location or access our contacts, it is paramount that if we do not want to end up like Leslie's cows with VR goggles, rejected, unemployed, and redundant, deluded into thinking that the world is a land of milk and honey, we stay vigilant and choose to affirm our humanity and the humanity of our neighbors at any chance we get. I hope that watching The Matrix today reminds you that we're all in this together and that the fragmented and data-hungry society we live in is no substitute for authenticity and solidarity. Enjoy the movie, everyone. Thank you.